Well, I have to agree with Congressman Clyburn. I think my former national president of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, would make a phenomenal Secretary of Agriculture with all of her experience on the committees that she's on in Congress. And you make a good point that there are a lot of people in her district, as well as in New Orleans and so many other districts where there are majority Black people that not just want progressive policies, they want policies that are actually going to do something for them, that are going to create that systemic change. And as we've seen over the years past, sometimes you have folks rising up and challenging incumbents to get that change that they are working for. And so I think this is a great opportunity to see some young, fresh Black leadership, because I think it's critical that in both New Orleans and Cleveland, where they are majority Black cities, that we have Black representation, that you have someone young, fresh, some new ideas, someone we may not have even heard of, who is really ready to be bold on the issues that we need, bold in Congress, to be there with a Nikema Williams and Cori Bush to actually make this work for Black Americans, folks who carried Biden over the line in 2020.
Well, I think one of the most important things that we know about any of the people who are right now at speculation, right? We need to hear directly from the transition team on who his appointments will be, is that they are crisis tested, not just battle tested, but crisis tested. And we have to get through the COVID pandemic as well as the racial justice pandemic that we're in, and so many intersecting pandemics that are increasingly making it harder for women, people of color, young people, LGBTQ folks, Indigenous folks, the list goes on, people with disabilities, to come back and revive after this pandemic. And so I agree with what Ali was just saying, is that not only have these people been crisis tested, whether in an administration before or with then Senator Joe Biden, who is now our president-elect, but they also bring diversity, which is really important. And they also understand that in order for us to build back better, the promises that have been made on the Biden campaign, we have to do that with diverse experience. And President-elect Joe Biden is guaranteeing that he will have a diverse cabinet pick.
Well, Vice President Biden did commit to picking a Black woman for Supreme Court justice. And now that does give room for people who are calling for someone who may not be Black, but has the policies that people are looking for, systemic change to improve the outcomes of Black America. We have to think about the climate that we're in. We're in an economic crisis. We're going into a housing crisis in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic that is overwhelmingly taking the lives of Black and brown, low income and marginalized folks. And so folks are actually looking for someone who is ready day one with significant policies. And there are people making the case that Elizabeth Warren, with her plan for everything, but not just her plan for everything, the fact that she is able to bring to the table people who often feel as though that they're shut out of the political process. It's why you saw so many movement leaders in Black communities endorsing her in the primary. You have the architect of the intersectionality framework, Kimberly Crenshaw, endorsed Elizabeth Warren in the primary. That speaks to the values that she presents, and it's why a lot of people want to keep her in the conversation.
Well, they're seeing, one, his record on women and the issues that we care about. We see Joe Biden moving in the polls, but you saw this week, too, that a lot of women saw themselves in how Senator Harris was treated on that debate stage, interrupted 43 times, having to say, I am speaking, when several of us women on this panel and listening have had to say that. Women were showing up in their pink pantsuits. They were saying, vote for her, rallying together. And that is because they're energized around Senator Harris, but also because Joe Biden is the champion that we need when it comes to reproductive rights, when it comes to childcare, education, and economic rights for women. And so women are excited, and we're seeing that in the polling, and we're seeing that with women galvanized to early vote between now and Election Day.
You know, it's frustrating that the president and some of his cronies are still throwing a temper tantrum about this election when, as you all were talking about before this segment, 3,000 Americans are dying daily, more than September 11th. And so he's continuing to throw this temper tantrum. And I would agree with my co-panelists that this isn't over. Trump is the king of distraction. That's why Rudy Giuliani is his chief legal expert over there. And so what it's telling us is that he's going to find every single way possible to distract from the destruction that he has caused in the 4 years that he has been in office and right now in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, and try to rally up his base, which is really dangerous because we've seen they are protesting no mask. They are protesting the election results. They, for some reason, think that they can overturn some of the results. And let me remind your viewers in that it was Republicans who said that they couldn't count absentee and mail-in ballots early, ahead of election day in some of these key states. And now they're trying to say that those votes are illegal because they were counted after election day. But they decided that rule. So the hypocrisy is there. And unfortunately, a lot of Trump's followers and supporters are following that hypocrisy in those conspiracy theories.
Well, I think you have to do it with a combination of both, because I think the conversation of her governing has only been around her record in California versus when she was in the Senate, and she has one of the most progressive records that rivals those of Senator Bernie Sanders and my former boss, Senator Elizabeth Warren. And so you put that alongside her experience as a multiracial woman growing up in the United States, as the daughter of immigrants, as someone who has sat down with reproductive justice leaders, with climate change leaders, and had the conversation of not only how these issues are impacting certain constituencies, but bringing the list of race as well. And so I think what tends to happen as our politics at this level have tended to be very white, we don't bring in people's full nuanced experience into how they're governing. And so I believe that the Biden campaign should actually lean into her identity, lean into her personal experience, because that will then also bring in this large coalition like it did this week with an endorsement from supermajority and the Working Families Party.